This week on the Dragon Boys of Summer, we break down the penultimate episode of season 2 of House of the Dragon. And lads, you know what penultimate episodes are like in the Game of Thrones world. Plus, we're going to look at some of the huge news that came out of San Diego Comic Con the weekend for the MCU and the boys. And we're also going to talk some more Deadpool and Wolverine. And here to join me for this very special edition, hoping to begin well and go on from there. It is the one, the only Fan Club's Kev Keen. You're very welcome back to the show after technical difficulties scuppered. For anyone who listened to the Deadpool and Wolverine podcast, Kev jumped on a little bit later and then started having technical difficulties in the middle. So I'm like, oh, here's Kev. And then
Yeah.
was never referred to again. Which I can only imagine sounded really rude if you were listening on Spotify. Why are they just ignoring Kev? He was here, but technical difficulties kind of kept him away. So we want to catch up. Kev, how are things? How are you keeping up? We're nearly at the end of this content mountain.
We are. I'm doing great. I'm very excited to talk about last night's episode. If you want to kind of just get stuck in, will we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Man, for me, this is my favorite episode this season.
Okay.
Over Rook's Rest, everything.
Okay.
This felt like, and I want to preface this by saying I've loved the season so far. I've loved the slow burn. I've loved just some of the dialogue and conversations and stuff we've gotten. But this really felt like we're fucking back with Game of Thrones again.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I absolutely loved every second of it. I'm gonna watch it again after this.
Yeah, you're bought in. All right. I absolutely love it. I'm very excited to talk about this. Guys, before we get into it, just a reminder, this is a recap podcast. We're going to be talking with spoilers. We're going to be talking about everything that you've seen in this episode in Game of Thrones in House of the Dragon so far. We may refer at times to the book, but don't worry, we're not going to be spoiling any plot details that happen in Fire and Blood that would reveal what's going to happen in the show. If we refer to the book, you can rest your breasts, calm your tits. We're not going to spoil anything. We're just giving you extra context for there. Before we get into it, as we always do, we're going to recap what is Kev Keith's favorite episode of the season so far, and we're going to put you back in the know for what happened. And we opened this episode on Cyrax and Sea Smoke staring at each other like two Maz in Tesco, staring at the last pack of nappies. Adam kneels quickly for Rhaenyra, which is right to be suspicious of. Take it from a few McGowan's visits gone wrong. If they're kneeling within minutes, they're a wrong'un. Rhaenyra, like me in those McGowan's visits, though, is in a beggar's chooser situation, so she just accepts the situation. Again, you're right to be cautious about it, but just go with it anyway. Alicent is fed up and takes a camping trip with a reluctant Kingsguard, Sir Rickard, who basically has to sit around watching her go for creepy morning swims while saying she may never want to leave. And he's like, I don't think this is in my contract. Rhaenyra's small dick council, and also disappointingly Jace, are up in arms that a commoner has been accepted as a dragon rider. Mazaria makes the point to her that wealthy lords are only more able to afford good prostitutes and no more likely to be honourable. Rhaenyra is on side and pledges to raise an army of bastards, which is an old catchphrase for what we refer to today as Liverpool Football Club. After the death, I could have gone with so many options there. I could have gone with like Putin, Israel, anything. No, Liverpool, fuck is. After the death of his grandsire, Grove, new young Lord Oscar Tully shows he's no muppet and successfully unites the River Lords under Rhaenyra's banner by agreeing that Daemon and the Blackwoods are dickheads and peer pressuring Daemon into beheading his new creepy bestie. Grandmaster Orwell and Lara Strong are trying this new style of modern physical therapy to help Aegon recover. This basically consists of dragging a screaming man across the room and telling him he's doing a good job. Apparently Lara's cure for severe disfiguration and burn wounds is just accept you're a cripple now and want to recover quickly, which I'm not sure is medically sound. Despite getting off to a shaky start when all of her dragon keepers walked off the job proclaiming this a load of bollocks, Rhaenyra manages to give the small folk of Targaryen bastards a hell of a Braveheart speech to motivate them to play Dragonstone's hottest new game show, Strictly Come Dragons. What she conveniently admits is that 95% of them would quite quickly die screaming within minutes. However, in a stunning turn of event, You'll never guess it. The small folk the show has been randomly paying attention to all season in Ulf and you turn out to have that dragon riz and claim Silverwing and Vermithor respectively. Apparently Silverwing doesn't mind if you've got an old sports injury. Ulf is so excited he goes for a fly right into the middle of King's Landing, which soon has Aemond and Vega chasing him back to Dragonstone. That is until you realise he's now outnumbered and scarpers home like a bully who just chases his victim towards their jacked big brothers. Rhaenyra looks on defiantly as it seems the power balance has shifted momentously in the Dance of Dragons. We've got only one episode left in season 2, and that was the Red Sowing, or as I prefer to call it, How to Train Someone Else's Dragon. Kev, you thought this was your favorite episode of the season. Talk us through why. What is it about this episode that grabbed you? Because that's big considering like Rook's Rest was a great episode and kind of got the highlights, so to speak.
Yeah. It's the one scene actually in particular for me was with the new Lord Tully talking to Daemon. That entire scene felt like it was Catelyn Stark again, talking just like absolute like just fucking truth bombs basically, and just really putting people in their places. And I just loved this little kid really put Daemon in his place and serve justice to was it it's the Blackwoods, isn't it? Yeah, I thought that was absolutely class. That felt like a proper Game of Thrones moment to me. I absolutely adore that. And then, look, I know it's a bit predictable with Hugh and Ulf. Although that is one of the weaker points. I'll get onto a bit later. But that entire sequence in the Dragon Pit felt like a movie. Like the CGI in that was like ridiculously good. All of the CGI of the dragons this episode is brilliant. I know there was no battles or anything like that, but that one scene in the Dragon Pit alone with Vermithor just going mental was unreal for me as well. It was one of those things where I can't believe I'm getting this for free on TV. It was that good.
I love it. Yeah, I agree. I thought this was an excellent episode. We needed a big episode, but what I liked about it most is we do have that pre-programmed into us from Game of Thrones, or like the second last episode. But you know what? Then that comes at the expense sometimes of the last episode of the season, which is just kind of like reconfiguring the pieces so that it sets up an intriguing next season, rather than delivering anything spectacular in itself. Whereas I feel like this season has taken a break from that, and the last episode, we've got a lot left, and I want to discuss that kind of in depth with you as we go and what to expect. Really exciting, but I thought they delivered, and I think this is what this show is good at in a way that maybe even Game of Thrones wasn't good at, in that it delivers on its promises. Like when you look at the dragons, when you look at kind of again, even just conversations, and Lord Tully, that was a fantastic scene. I want to focus on him as we get on, and then just even kind of how is it going to work for Aegon, where it leads us, like what's going to happen with Aegon, like can he rule, like is he going to come back, what's going to happen with Aemond, like he seems to be in trouble. And then we've got the trailer for next week, which we'll discuss in a little bit, where there's a couple of wrinkles that were like, oh shit, like this. There's a lot left here. It sets up the last episode really nicely, but it looks like it's going to be an action-packed episode, while also delivering an awe-inspiring kind of episode in itself. I want to kind of get into plot, and I suppose this is a good sign of an episode well delivered, where the first thing you want to talk about is kind of the story and not kind of the quality, you know. I want to talk about Rhaenyra because I felt this was a really interesting episode for her, because on the face of it, she looks to be standing tall as Aemond and Vhagar are kind of hightailed at the end of this episode. But I also think that it's worth kind of noting the potential cost that it got there, including like obviously like leading many small folk to their death, alienating Jacaerys and her dragon keepers, and also giving up two of her dragons to two people. Like I read a comparison of it where it's like handing a normal person a nuclear bomb and just going, I trust that you're going to use that for me. But ultimately there's reasons to be intrigued by that. And then you talk about kind of, you know, the personal cost for Rhaenyra. You know what I mean? Is she taking risks here, or is it working? Let's talk about the state of play, because it very much looks as if the Blacks are winning at the end of this episode, or they definitely have a foothold or a leg up over the Greens. But what are
Mm.
your thoughts on the state of play for everything Rhaenyra in this episode?
Um, I liked that as soon as this episode started, we got just the beat scene of Rhaenyra and the Adam. It is Adam, I think, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Adam before the.
And I think that conversation was kind of just important for, like, I know the end of the other episode where they were searching for potential people with Targaryen blood in them, and knowing that after he tells her, like, the dragon picked me, I didn't pick the dragon, I didn't claim this dragon, the dragon picked me, was a revelation to her. And I think that's an interesting kind of extra layer, I think, on this story now, that the dragons are choosing people rather than people are choosing the dragons. Now, people, if they're like born into royalty, have just been fucking lucky, clearly, that the dragons are accepting them. I suppose that they're some. It's more the adult dragons, I suppose, that are accepting riders, like Aemond, for example, with Vhagar. But yeah, I thought that Rhaenyra really became quite cold, though, in this, as it went on. I know she gave them a chance and said, "Look, the majority of you probably will die. This is like a, if you get chosen, it's incredible, but if you don't, you are going to die." And none of them said no.
I don't feel like she made it clear enough, like how they die and how quickly they die. You know what I mean? I felt like she's like, she can tell herself that it's like, technically I said, oh yeah, and by the way, you might die. But like, imagine if you lived, you know,
Yeah.
and like I feel like she undersold the fact that no, almost all of you are minutes from your lives ending
Yeah.
in a horrific way that you will instantly regret, because I don't think any of them were still motivated like by the end. Like you was just, you kind of got it together by the end, but he was clinging for dear life.
I
Ulf
think,
was trying to get the fuck away, and they won. Let's
yeah,
keep in mind, they are the only survivors from this, and they were not like going, yes, but think of the glory of claiming a dragon. Like they were like, get me the fuck out of here.
I do think Hugh, when he saw the head of Maylis being paraded through King's Landing, I think when he saw that, he kind of thought, oh, they can be killed. They're not gods. And that's kind of what I feel like part of his come on was.
Ooh.
That's what kind of, I know he was very courageous anyway. Like, he pushed your woman out of the way and was just very skillful. But I think that's really what motivated him to kind of step up to geez, what's the name of the dragon again? Varamir? Vormithor. Yeah, I think that was a big motivation, because they did, like, some of it is a bit ham-fisted, but they did focus in on Hugh seeing that dragon's head in the city being paraded through it, and I kind of feel like that's probably a bit of a motivation there for him. I did think it was really odd that Rhaenyra had everyone go up at once.
Yeah.
Rather than like
there's no plan. Like she's like, who wants to step up first? And then your man stepped up, and then she walked away, and then Vermithor killed everyone instantly. And it's like, what was the move here? And I feel like Rhaenyra didn't know, because she was just like, the dragon will. I've told you everything you need to know, and it's like, I feel like you haven't told them anything, and I feel like it's because you don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, she kind of just stood up in the balcony, just watching it all, emotionless, like, as well.
Yeah. This is the thing that kind of strikes me as a bit worrying for Rhaenyra. She reminds me somewhat of later era Daenerys, you know, because there certainly was, and I'm glad you brought up that scene with Adam, because in that she gave the impression, and she started acting like a ruler, and she carried that quite well, you know, because I think we've seen Rhaenyra even kind of acting as queen because her small council are undermining her so much. We've seen her, you know, almost appear mortal and human, and maybe that's what's led to her doubt. And even like kind of, even though it makes her a better person, I think people sometimes mistake that for weakness. And let's be very clear about that. There's no doubt that the fact she's a woman plays into that, and this is just a horribly prejudiced world for her dealing with that. But I also think that like now she's appearing more legitimate, but that's worrying for me.
Yeah.
Um, I feel that's scary, kind of where like where's this going? What's coming, and what is the cost of her kind of her strength? And, like are we at risk of losing Rhaenyra the same way we lost Annie?
Um, yeah, I suppose she's just desperate, I think, at this stage, isn't she?
Yeah.
For a win, because she doesn't have armies that she knows of yet anyway, really. And she's just Damon's hasn't replied to any of her text messages. So like, yeah, he she's just desperate, I think, as well. I does Adam know that he's the son of Corlys, by the way?
Yeah, he knows, and like, cause he's kind of,
I felt like Alan knows, but Adam
I
doesn't.
no, I think they both know because Adam is the guy who's kind of like, come on, we need to get something out of this. You know what I mean? He's trying to push,
Hmm.
and Alan's like, I'm just happy with my lot. I'm just happy. I've got my sea and I've got my salt, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think Adam's like, nah, man, come on. He's the fucking hand of the queen. We got to get some shit out of this. So,
Yeah.
but I feel like he didn't want to give up Corliss either because I'm like, he's like, I'm just after making myself valuable. I'm not going to fuck over, you know,
Mm,
Corliss now. So that's why I felt he didn't say anything. But I think he knows, like, and there was a lot of knowingness, I feel, between in their interaction that they had.
yeah.
For
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
anyway. Again, unconfirmed, but yeah, I'm confident he knows, but he's just not willing to kind of. He doesn't need to. Like again, he's burying the headline if he's like, "I'm Corliss's son," and it's like, okay, you have a dragon, like you can have what you want, like. He's a dragon. Like that is much more impressive. If you're gonna introduce yourself to the queen, be like, I tamed a dragon. And by
Yeah.
the way, I'm a bastard. You know what I mean?
And by the way, it shows me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And what I find is interesting as well, the Game of Thrones official podcast talked a little bit about this, and it got me thinking. It's like for the first time, well, I don't know actually, because Viserys was big into his signs and portents, and of course the Song of Ice and Fire, and this and that and the other. He's a big believer, and he instilled that into Rhaenyra. Um, and that's what she kind of bases her beliefs on. But she's also and always been very rational, very modern thinking. Now
Hmm.
it seems to she seems to be having an almost dangerous divine right towards the throne and at all costs. And I feel that that's partly because, yeah, she's pushed into a corner and she's desperate. Very similar to Daenerys. Daenerys started to feel the so close but so far kind of from the throne. She started to feel the doubts from the likes of Tyrion and Varys and Jon Snow, even she felt was kind of pulling away from her, and that drove her to madness. I don't know if that's where the story's going, but I just think it's an interesting one to watch. But
It's like every week, her small council have something to complain about. Like
yeah.
this week, it was the bastards on dragons and how they and
No
even
matter what
Jace.
she does, like, and I get it, no matter what she does, she's like, I found more dragon riders, but they're commoners. Like, no matter
Yeah,
what, she's like, I like literally the biggest dragon in existence just turned around and flew in the other direction. I'm that powerful. And they're like, yeah, but you've got a spot in your nose. So
yeah,
it's like she can't do anything. Like, we'd have the small council just undermining her. Like, I feel so bad for her.
yeah.
I want to talk about that scene. Look, the end result was Alan, Ulf, and you, or Adam, Ulf, and you, three of the kind of people that have just been randomly thrown into scenes, ended up with a dragon. It's what we've been saying for weeks would happen. Every week we come on here and we're like, gee, I wonder if those people that they keep cutting to,
I didn't expect Ulf.
really? Okay, what you
No.
thought you'd be a bit of a red herring, like because the old
Yeah,
sports injury, you can't run as fast as you used to. I love
that's
that bit, by the way. It's like, oh, now's your chance. Oh, my leg. Oh, yeah, no, could have played for Man United except for the leg gave out for me.
I actually didn't like that scene at all. I thought that it really took
Really?
me out of the show a bit. Just that conversation with the four lads. I was like,
Yeah.
this looks like a fucking Sky One show for a little bit. It took me out of Game of
It's so
Thrones.
it's so comedic, and this show just isn't. Game of
Yeah,
Thrones could be a lot more funny, but this show isn't necessarily funny. And the comedic things do stick out quite a lot. So I do get that. Like I enjoyed it and laughed just because I
yeah,
think the actor is quite good at that part, and he gets it, and it's just a nice change of pace. But I do get it; it is jarring in this show, which is quite serious.
Yeah, he just seems like a bit of a joke character.
Yeah.
Um,
But the
I mean,
dragon scene itself, was it worth the wait to you? Did it feel like it paid off? Kind of what we knew
when
was coming.
when the dragon shows him,
Like,
like
well,
Ulf,
I suppose all of the scene, like all of the kind of selection scene.
um, I thought everything about the Hugh part of it was incredible for me.
Okay.
It's some of the best Game of Thrones like CGI and set pieces I think there's ever been.
Mm.
Um, and I think you lead up to this fucking cool scene of Hugh screaming, "Come on!" and then Vermintor calming and him putting his hand on their nose, and then it cuts to Ulf, this fucking buffoon dude, walking in an egg, and then just getting lucky, and then it just cuts to him like a fucking Harry Potter in the what's it called, it Prisoner of Azkaban ending. And you know what I'm talking about.
I do. And it's so
Um,
true.
and it took me out of the moment completely.
Okay.
There's two moments I didn't like in this episode. That's one of them, and the bar scene's the other.
You're just not drinking the old kind
Yeah.
of that's fair. I liked it because it's just he's such a fuck up, and I'm like, what the fuck? You had a dragon for 2 minutes, and you're just gone. Let's go to King's Landing. It's like, did he mean to? Can he not control the dragon? Like the dragon keepers aren't there, and that's one that's really interesting to look at.
And has
And
that dragon been out of the dragon pit, I wonder, as well? Like maybe just
yeah,
wanted to, because whose dragon was it before Ulf got it?
I don't know now off the top of my head. I think he was just a free dragon.
Yeah.
Vermitor's lineage is that Vermitor was sorry, I tell a lie. Silverwing has never been in battle. Silverwing and Vermitor were do you remember in the have you read the books? I don't remember.
I've listened to a bit of the
Okay.
audiobook.
Okay.
But like no, I'm not even close to where the season one starts, basically.
Okay, so King Jaehaerys the Conciliator, the person that we met at the very start of this show,
Yeah.
who called the High Council to kind of decide his succession. Okay,
Yeah, he had no
Vermitor,
heir, wasn't it?
yeah, he had no
Yeah.
heir. Well, like he had just a massive succession problem because he had basically two sons who both died prematurely, and that like they were both
Yes.
considered his heir, and that kind of led to controversy, and there were stories of bastards coming out of and blah 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 blah. He Vermitor was his dragon, and
Okay.
Silverwing was Alisane's dragon. Alisane is his wife. And there's some interesting kind of text here in that Ulf's Hugh's revelation here that his mother was a Targaryen prostitute is pretty much confirmation that his mother was Sarah Targaryen. Sarah Targaryen, I'm not going to get into the full story, but it is a story I really recommend you look up. It's like you could almost make a season of House of the Dragon with how interesting her life is. She's
Okay.
just a rebel child and an absolute nymphomaniac. She basically started a polyamorous couple, I don't know if you call them polyamorous, a sextuple, essentially she was in. Three
Yeah.
guys, three girls, and they all just fucked all day. She's just mad for the dick, or she's mad for anything, like. um, and that ultimately led to her trying to escape from the castle. She's just this wild child. She was sent to Old Town to try and calm her down and make her a bit of a scholar. And it was originally as a punishment, they were going to bring her back, but she escaped from Old Town. She ended up in the Free Cities as a prostitute. And then through this, we've learned she ended up obviously back at some stage in the pleasure houses of King's Landing, which is how you came to be.
Oh,
Well, we
okay.
don't know that story, but we're left to assume that given you is, he's small folk in King's Landing. He probably can't afford to travel to the Free Cities. So
Yeah.
somewhere between there. That is who his mother is. And that is who these dragons are. Vermithor and Silverwing were basically her parents' dragons.
So Silverwing would have grown up in King's Landing then.
Yeah. Now Silverwing has never been to battle.
Yeah, but maybe that's why he flew off to King's Landing though.
That's the thing. Silverwing is, and what I loved about this is that I loved that in the tree. And again, look, this has been predictable, okay?
Yeah.
If you can call something like miles out, like as soon as, like all season, I don't know where these people are going. I haven't read ahead in the books, but I'm like, these people we keep cutting to obviously are going to play into it. We've been calling it, and it happened. And if anything, I agree with a lot of the sentiment that I've heard out there, where I'm like, I wish they'd have thrown in one red herring. Like if Ulf had died or something like that, that would have been a good red herring, and it would have fit as well. But I think they righted a lot of the wrongs with this by it being so good. What I loved about it was it showed the three different personalities of the dragons in how they selected their riders. So you've got Sea Smoke, who, by the way, consider this for a second. If Adam is Corliss's bastard and Laenor was Sea Smoke's last owner, Adam is Laenor's half brother. So there's that too. So there's like, is that a part of it? So there's something there. Another thing to kind of keep an eye on is dragons have never in history been recorded as having one more rider who's been alive at the same time. Are we left to infer that this means Laenor is dead somewhere in the Free Cities? Dragon lore would lead us to believe that, but I don't think the shows can answer that. But it's an interesting one to kind of think of. Yeah. What I loved about Vermithor is one of the most fiercest, as kind of Rhaenyra teed up quite nicely, fiercest dragons in King's Landing. Someone who can put it up to Vhagar one-on-one. And it was Yu's fierceness that attracted him to Vermithor. It was when Yu stood up to him and Vermithor was like, I like the cut of your jib. There you go. When it comes to Ulf, however, Silverwing's personality is as an adventurous dragon. Silverwing's the dragon you took out when you want to go on a bit of an adventure, a bit of a hen party weekend. You take Silverwing, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like Ulf was this guy's
that
a bit
connection.
Of a laugh. Yeah, this
okay, yeah.
So I feel that's where they were going with that, where it's different. And again, it is possible that Silverwing is just like, come on, we go for a fly, and just Ulf couldn't control her. I also feel it's possible that Ulf is like, do you know what the lads would love? If I just showed up on this dragon, and he's not thinking about the political implications, he's just showing off for the lads.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like he nearly starts World War III.
He kind of exposed all of the other dragons, really. That.
Oh, was that a plan? I don't know. The only reason it makes me think it wasn't a plan is she sent Ulf. But it made a point to Aemond, and it's an interesting one. Or did it give up a strategic advantage that Rhaenyra had?
That was more my thinking of. He did this by accident and unintentionally gave away all of her kind of like surprise that she can have. So yeah, I don't know that, like, I found Ulf a bit frustrating that way, but I hope maybe he'll win me over still. But yeah, that was his whole part there was one of the weaker links for me. But I do love that theory of the dragons having different personalities, and that Silverwing is just a bit like Ulf. Of just a bit of a mad lad.
yeah. And but also as well, worth noting, never been to battle. So that's something to watch for. Like Ulf, if you don't like him, you may not have to dislike him for long, because he's going to battle next week. And I think there's going to be some deaths. And well, we'll see. Anyway, we'll discuss kind of what we think is going to happen next week. We've already started it, so let's show some love for the new Lord Oliver Tully. Have you noticed, by the way, the names of the Tullys?
It was Grover Tully?
There's Grover Tully. There's
Oscar.
Oliver Tully. There's Oscar. Can you guess the other Tully's name? So we've got Oscar, Grover, Oliver.
Oliver and are these like Sesame Street characters?
The other one is Groucho. I'm not seeing George R. R. Martin just having a laugh, like, yeah,
Because
yeah.
part of me was like, Oscar is a type of fish, and I think a Grover is a type of fish as well, as far as I know.
Yeah, no, they're
And I thought it was all fish references, but that's hilarious.
yeah, Muppets. Yeah, literally, he's named the Tullys after Muppets. But like I said in the recap, Oliver Tully very much not a Muppet. Let's show some
No.
love for how he you like what I loved about this was that may be legitimately the best use of political speech and the position you're in to achieve your goals that I've seen in any Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
like by anyone. Like, I loved how he used his humility as a weapon, where he's like, I am green to this kind of thing. So what would I know, little old me, or having so little experience to guide me? My best course is to defer to my grandsire's oath. Getting Daemon what he wanted, getting all the River Lords on side, but also getting Daemon's respect, and then like
Serving
he
justice.
played a blinder. He
Yeah.
played an absolute fucking blinder. Is
That,
this the best? This has got to be up there with I forget her name. From
oh, Mormont.
yes, the Anna Mormont.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
very much up there.
yeah, it's up there with that as well. Like that kid is a fucking brilliant actor.
Yeah.
He absolutely nailed that. But I loved that. I'm presuming it's because his grandfather taught him so well
Yeah.
about um talking about political alignments and stuff as well, that he was just able to play 4D chess with everyone there. And I
Mm.
love that. Even Damon, just seeing Damon just being knocked down a peg by a kid is just fucking brilliant as well.
Mm.
I did love the scene though as well where he chops off the Blackwood's head, and he was instantly brought back then as well to Viserys with the crown, and that conversation he had with Viserys, like those moments. And I know people aren't really mad about the Harrenhal stuff, but I love every time I get some more Paddy Constantine on screen as Viserys, it's always a treat for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene where he basically handed him the crown, was like, "Do you want this?" And he didn't say yes or no. He kind of felt a bit more, "Shit, do I actually want this?"
Yeah.
Um,
I feel as well like being made to he was essentially made, and by the way, just shout out Archie Barnes, the actor's name for Oscar
Archie
Tully.
Barnes,
Yeah,
legend,
great job.
absolute legend.
A name we need to know has made his mark. And I hope we get a lot more of him as time
Mm,
goes. I don't know if we will, but I hope we do. Um, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's something that I love. It very much reminds me of the boys. Whenever Homelander gets into political situations, and like, no matter how powerful he is, no matter how much in every other situation of his life people fear him, when he's in the room with the Republicans in kind of the gathering where they're kind of uh, anointing Victoria Newman in the most recent
yeah,
season, and Homelander realizes that Sage isn't there to make the big speech, so he's got her. And then instantly, all the billionaire Republicans are like, "What the fuck's your tax policy? What would you do about this? What would you do about this?" And he's totally out of his depth. I love that concept of the strong man just realizing that, oh shit, I don't got this. Like, I am totally out of my league here. And that to me is almost what happened with Damon, where this child just rang rings around him on his
yeah.
first day in the job. he's like. He's like, I think that was more like, I think that's what will resonate and sting with Damon more, because he spent his whole life believing he's the rightful king. And this kid who just has it, like, was able to just destroy him, like, mentally.
Never called him king. I don't think once. It was
Yeah.
always, I pledge a note or note to Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
You're the king, and he only called him either king consort, and he might have called him your grace as well, but never called him king.
Yeah.
And I really like that about him as well, because you even when they were leaving the room where they had the conversation at first, and it was just Damon was so patronizing to him, being like, "Come along, Oscar," and gave him like this little
Mm.
pat in the back. and then just gets destroyed outside. But this kid is like, you underestimate me, like,
Yeah.
um, and I hope we get a bit more of this kid, but I also hope that's where we're gonna go with Aegon. I think a little bit as well of
Yeah.
underestimating this person, and using pain to motivate himself as well.
Yeah.
I'm loving this stuff with Larry's and Aegon, this little friendship thing that they've got going.
And it's one of
It's
these
going to be
things.
bad. It's going to turn out awful, but I'm
Yeah.
loving where it's going.
That's what I'm thinking, because it's like they're almost like anytime you see a character in a TV show, it's just a story trope. Say the
Yeah.
plan never happens. And Laris is saying the plan. Like, you're gonna be underestimated, you're gonna be this. It's like, and that's what made Oscar Tully's speech so amazing, because even we underestimated him as an
Mm,
audience. And then it's like, oh shit. But like, it feels like the plan is just not thought through. It feels like it's in
I want to be
another life.
wrong about
This
that though.
okay.
I don't think we have a really really good villain.
Mm,
I think Aemond is fine, but we don't have a Joffrey or we don't have Bruce Bolton in this show. And I think burnt face evil Aegon as a king, with Larry's as maybe his hand, could be fucking cool if that's the way to go.
mm, yeah, I'd like to see it, but almost like I feel like I almost like the split within the Greens more than I would like, say, Egon just to come back, because it's just difficult when you start to math it out, okay? And
Mm,
I've no doubt that George R. R. Martin has me beaten on this, and whatever way they have is going to be fucking amazing. So I may sound stupid to book readers now, but like where Aegon's tension is now is the same as where Alicent's tension is with Aemond. You know, it's the Green Civil War. Like, Aemond has his eyes set on Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra has her eyes set on Aemond because Aemond has Vhagar, so he's like her biggest threat. Um, well, Aegon is dangerous more so to Aemond than he is to Rhaenyra. That's who he's a threat to, and that's
yeah,
who his tensions with, because he knows that um what Aemond did, to him. And he knows that Aemond is the reason he's disfigured right now. It's not anyone else. It's not Rhaenyra. It's not, it wasn't Meleys who did it. It was Vhagar. Um, so I just don't know how that's gonna mat out. Like, I'm very intrigued with that, but I'm also like, I don't want to just see Aegon as the king again. I don't want to see Aemond just die next week and then Aegon steps back in, because I feel like that's a more intriguing story. I feel like him and Alicent almost are the good guys in the Greens, and the good guys in the Greens still are horrible people. But like, um, so that's on a scale very much. But like,
yeah,
I feel like they're the good guys in the green, and then Aemon's the big bad. Like, so I've no idea where it's going, but I'm very intrigued. But it feels right now like a plan that isn't
yeah.
destined to succeed in the way Laris has it mapped out.
I yeah, I would love Aemon to become a tweener and kind
Mm,
of just fuck off for a little bit and have Aegon have a rise to be this absolutely horrible Darth Vader kind of like person, like, I'm
mm,
back as a king again. And he's pissed off at Aemon, he's pissed off at Rhaenyra, he's pissed off at everybody, and he's just like the worst. Um, I wouldn't mind that, and I wouldn't. I A face turn for Aemon at some point would be fucking cool, I think, as well.
there's stuff there, because like, again, and we thought we were kind of getting it, where we saw him be vulnerable kind of in the pleasure house earlier in the
Yeah.
season, and that brought out this, and like, again, Aemond, consider the first time we met Aemond. And it's very easy to forget this, especially because it was when he was young and played by a different actor. But he was the kid who got bullied by all of
Mm,
the other kids, including Jace, and Luke. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So like, he got bullied by everybody before there was like a family split. And that's what drove him to be so vicious. That's what drove him to almost be repulsed by his own weakness and mortality. And that's what makes him the monster he is today. Now we have Aegon, who has been made into somewhat of a monster himself. You know what I mean? There's the physical disfigurement, but like again, that's not necessarily just because you're disfigured doesn't mean you're a monster, but it's what it's going to bring out in him and what
Yeah.
it's going to be inspiring him. I just feel like Laris is someone who he's flying close to the moon. I just don't feel like that story is a straight line where him and Laris just ascend in the way that Laris has it planned. Like,
Yeah.
could we
He's
get that version of Aegon? Yeah, but everything Laris seems to be doing now seems to be coming across as very transparent to people. I feel like he worked best when he operated in the shadows, just having a wank to Alison's feet, like, you know what I mean? And that soft power worked for him, but now when he's sitting in the King's Council, um, and kind of going, oh, noticed you haven't got a hand there. Could you use a hand? You know what I mean? Like, I feel
yeah.
like everyone's like, we know what you're doing, Laris. You're not that good. So I don't know if he's a puppet master. And again, if we have Otto come back, I feel Otto's going to see right through that shit as well. So
That's a big mystery that I was gonna ask you about as
yeah,
well. I was like, where do you think Otto is?
what the fuck's
Hasn't
going on?
hasn't responded to anybody. Um, we haven't heard a thing from him since he left.
Mm,
So I'm hoping we might get some closure on that. Maybe
mm.
next episode.
Yeah, and on top of that, we've got Alicent now just chilling in the woods, having a moment. She's just gone to Burning Man, like she's just
I'm
living
okay
off the
with that. Good
land.
for her.
Yeah, I kind of am okay. I said it at the start of the season. I actually kind of like Alicent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I empathize with her. I don't agree with every move she's made, but I empathize with her, and I think she's a victim as much as anything else. Has she made some selfless decisions? Yeah. Does she know she's done wrong? Yeah. But is she someone who morally is kind of I feel like that's what I wasn't that entertained by that aspect of the episode, if I'm being honest. It bored me a little
Mm.
bit, but
They
I
weren't
am
very
intrigued.
long, I suppose.
Yeah, I am
Um,
intrigued by her car. Like I like there is the moment where you're wondering if she's having that bit of a Kendall Roy moment, like under the water, and you're like, oh shit,
yeah.
is this just it for Allison? It could be, and she's someone that in theory, her arc could be over or could be very near the end, or she
Mm.
could be someone who lasts until the end. We don't know, but she's in a very intriguing scenario, and her and Otto now just seem totally in limbo, phased out. The only thing shining light for Otto is that Aemond wants him back, but what's going to happen? I don't know. There's a lot
Yeah.
up in the air, and I feel like we're not going to get answers to a lot of those questions until season 3, and I'm okay with that too because I want that intrigue to come into it. I want to talk about next week's
Yeah.
finale. Um, it's directed, by the way, by Geeta Vasan Patel, who directed Lord of the Tides, which was arguably the best episode of season 1. That's Viserys' death, where he did, of course, the walk, the iconic walk down. Um, we've got a lot going on here. Have you got a chance to see the trailer?
I did. I
Okay,
think I saw two trailers
so it
because
looks like
there was one trailer that I saw and it was only a minute long again, but I don't know if it was real or not.
yeah,
That they
okay.
showed a couple of other bits.
Right. We've got the Battle of Harrenhal is happening anyway. So that looks like, well, or at least we're setting up for it. Again, whether it happens or not, we haven't got to look
Mm,
at that. What's really intriguing is, for me, and has a lot of people talking, is Aemond asks Helena to
yeah,
take Dreamfire
Dreamfire.
into battle. Here's an interesting one because if she does go, and we don't know what she says, she may say, fuck off. Someone just let me play with my fucking lizards in the castle. Every time I leave, it is one of the most traumatic experiences in my life. I would love that for Helena, and I'd be very okay if that's where that went. But what's interesting is that if she does go, that's a massive deviation from the books because Dreamfire never goes to battle. So that is
Oh,
like it's not a fighting dragon. It is Dreamfire is very much coupled up with Helena, and they've very similar personalities. And Helena doesn't even go on Dreamfire that much. She's not a big dragon rider. She just wants to play with her bugs, and like view vague shadows of the future. That's her interest. She's not big into the old dragons.
bit of a Luna
Um,
Lovegood.
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. So what are your thoughts? What are your predictions? And again, we haven't read ahead in the books, so
No,
if you haven't and you're listening, you're safe and we can speculate freely.
I haven't even gotten to the show part of the audiobook yet. There's a lot of stuff beforehand. Um, but yeah, I can't see her going into battle, to be honest. I think they might show Dreamfire, but she doesn't seem like a dragon rider at all.
Mm.
I can't imagine her fighting another dragon at all. Um, and if she does end up going, I can't imagine her coming back
Mm.
because she's clearly very depressed still. They kind of haven't really gone back to her enough, I think, after Jaharis was killed. Um, so yeah, yeah, if she goes out in the dragon, she's not coming back. But next week, I don't think we're gonna get a big battle.
Okay.
I think it'll be a setup, like you said, of moving some pieces for next season. I think next season will be all out.
Okay.
But I don't I think I think a lot of the CGI budget was used on this episode.
Right.
In the Dragon Pit scene. I think we'll get a lot of just moving of places, and we'll probably get a ridiculous season one or episode one of season three next week. I think because I think in the trailer as well you can see armies marching over. Is it the twins, the past of the twins and stuff as well? It'll be armies going into place, and maybe Damon. I'd love, yeah, if Damon probably recruiting his army eventually, but I don't think there's going to be a battle. I'd be very surprised if there was.
Do you want me to get you excited? This isn't a spoiler, but
Okay.
it's just something I know. I think there will be a battle, and here's why. They said it. No, they didn't say it for next week. They didn't. What they said was there are two big battles that happen in this season, and we've only seen one. You know, unless they say, "Oh no, the first one was, do you remember the Brackens and the Blackwoods at the
The
start?" It's
aftermath.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like if that's a big battle, fuck yourselves. And I think I don't think I'm missing any. I think they're the only battles that we've kind of had
Yeah.
any glimpses of that in Rook's Rest. So for me, they came into this season saying two big battles. They are obviously keeping tight lipped. They're gonna. It's the finale. So I think we're gonna see it. And also, Kristen Cole's words in the trailer seem to be very much setting up like this is Sparta type vibes.
Mm.
Um, so I think also another thing I think we're going to see. I think Kristen Cole's race is going to be run. I think I worry for him. I don't see what's left for Kristen, to be honest. Um, like I feel like Laris has already kind of supplanted him as hand to Aegon, and I think Aegon's gonna lean quite a lot on Laris. He's gonna have to
Yeah.
because so I think
He's burned.
he hasn't got much. Yeah, Kristen,
Gonna need to
Aegon's
lean a
been
lot.
burned, but also like again, like Kristen, that happened on Kristen's watch. You know what I mean? So I think
Also,
Kristen
yeah.
Cole could be a big death we have coming up. Um, I think there's a few things to watch out for as well. I think
We're getting that wild
Allison,
dragon.
yeah.
What's it
Ooh,
call it? Is it sheep stealer?
ooh, I know you're talking. Yeah.
Um,
Ooh,
I think we're gonna get that dragon. I think it's who's trying to get, is it Bela? Some of these names I get mixed up, but I think it's
yeah.
Bela.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
I think she's
Raina, I
gonna
think it is. Yeah.
I think she's gonna claim that dragon next
Ooh,
week.
interesting.
That might be a finale shot
I,
potentially.
I, I think, yeah, I think that's a shot rather than we get her involved. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
something
yeah.
that they just tease, but that's a good show, and yeah, I think there's something to that. Or it could be something they just leave for season three and they just let us be intrigued. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good show for happening in the future either way. Um, I think I don't think Elena's going to battle. I
No.
think Alicent will intervene in that. I think Alicent is going to step up and be a mother for once and intervene and protect her child. And I think she's going to do so knowing and perhaps slightly hoping that that undermines Aemond to the point that maybe it gets rid of Aemond now at this stage.
Mm.
It's not directly making the decision. She can't say she's responsible for her child dying, but I think she's scared of Aemond and the power that he brings and how what's the great quote they gave? Have you not been like when she talked about like, the slights of his youth still kind of cut him and kind of wounded him and it changed him as a person. And I think she's scared of him and I think she'll do that knowing. I said earlier in after Rook's Rest, my conclusion was that Vhagar is almost too powerful. And when something is that powerful, you almost need to get it off the board early to make it more intriguing. But now I feel with Rhaenyra's three dragons, I feel like you've got to keep. I think Aemond is going to take an L here, but like not be mortally wounded. I think he's going to like realize he's been outmatched by the three dragons, and he's going to scarp her at some stage. So I think we're getting a win for the Blacks here.
I think he takes out one of them though.
Yeah, I think Ulf is gonzo.
Ulf's, which I wouldn't be annoyed about.
Yeah, I think you might get your happy ending. What is interesting though, okay? Here's one to watch, right? I am really worried because consider what we said earlier about effectively giving a common folk a dragon is like giving one of us a nuclear bomb. And that's what Rhaenyra's done. I feel like that she can't go 100% with that. That's got to go wrong in some way. And I worry about if Aemond were to find out that you is one of those dragon riders and that you's wife is in King's Landing.
Yeah,
Like,
that's fair.
and like he could win a Vermithor here. Like Vermithor could be, yeah. Or if Laris found it and used it for Aegon or something, but use wife being just left in King's Landing, that is a very valuable asset because that is the only way you could get you back on side.
Never even thought about that. But yeah, absolutely right.
Like again, consider to go 3 for 3 dragons all staying on side with Rhaenyra. We've no reason to think that that will happen. Like, why are you and Ulf loyal to her? What is inspiring that? You know what I mean? Like, what you know? There's nothing really. I suppose they may hate like Aemond and the Greens because they starved and their kid died. I get it.
And she sent them food, I suppose, as well.
They could, but again, we don't know that that's what they think. We don't know that that's how they feel. You know what I mean? We're inferring that. And again, having used wife held captive and a threat if he doesn't turn sides, that's quite compelling. So,
and if you lose Vermithor, that's a big loss as well.
yeah, so you could even lose Vhagar and gain Vermithor. You know what I mean? There could be a lot that happens. I don't think it's going to be that big. I think that's that's too much to happen in one episode. But like, yeah,
in terms of dragons, like the Blacks completely outnumber the Greens at the moment.
Oh, it's
ridiculous. So yeah, they're gonna have to even the odds out there. But then the Blacks don't really have too much of an like in terms of armies, really. They've got the River Lords now, I suppose, but like you've got the Lannisters and pretty much all of King's Landing marching down as well.
I feel like army wise, yeah, I feel like they're doing all right. Like they've got the Greybeards now with the Lannisters, and they've got the twins sewn up so they can get there quicker. I don't think we're gonna see not the Lannisters, the Starks.
Yeah, will we get the Starks next week?
I don't think we're seeing them. I don't think so. Okay. I hope we get to see that lion in the Lannisters. I hope we get to see. Yeah, I hope that comes into play.
I didn't know there was lions in Westeros.
Yeah, there you go.
But then why wouldn't there be? I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's a flex. It's like that's not doing shit. That is like a dragon hors d'oeuvre. I'm like, it's not. You're not doing shit. It's just because you are the lions. He's your fucking wild card, man. He's the MGM Grand logo of fucking the Lannisters. Like that's all he is.
Get him, Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Would be cool if he just decided to eat Kristen Cole's face because fuck Kristen Cole, but that's about
That'd be a way to go.
Yeah. Interesting times indeed. Before we finish up on House of the Dragon, I do want to highlight Joy Wagner 979, who has been getting involved and posting really, really interesting kind of episode synopsis and thoughts on our YouTube. And I want to get your thoughts on this comment they left last week in the wake of our discussion around how one thing the show kind of misses somewhat, or maybe could highlight better, but kind of has started to do, is how all of the people we're watching are horrible and the small folk are the victims of everything. So that's kind of what Joy Wagner's picked up on, and kind of we'll get into it. So, what they say is it's frustrating that most of the audience isn't grasping the war is horrible and everyone involved is bad team because the show is going there just very subtly. I think Rhaenyra is clearly meant to be read as self-righteously choosing to follow a bit of what is essentially religious propaganda because it conveniently props up her own claim to the throne, which in turn props up her own self-conceit. She almost also makes the consistently poor, impulsive decisions, and it's questionable whether or not she'd actually make a great queen. But she isn't as obviously terrible as Aemon, so people seem to miss all of that and think of her as morally pure instead, which I think says quite a lot about those people more than it does about the writing or about the character herself. I'm not sure how the show could do this better, but that part of the audience is clamoring for another Cersei, so they could probably do a whole series of cartoonishly awful people duking it out and appeal to the common denominator if they wanted to. Personally, I appreciate the subtle writing, and I'm glad they're not going full cartoon duke out straight off the bat, but I'm probably in the minority. So thoughts on that, and kind of, is that what the show's telling us, that everyone here everyone here kind of sucks, and it's
I
like, what do you
think
think?
last week, as soon as we saw the boats come in with all the food, you're being like, "Oh, Rhaenyra is just manipulating these people.
Mm,
She's not doing this for any to feed the people. It's for political gain."
mm,
Um, and I completely agree with him there actually as well. And I think we saw it again this week in the Dragon Pit where she didn't care once the job got done. She didn't care who died. She was just cold and emotionless. And it's subtle and it's not. I thought the as soon as those boats came in, the first thing in my head was, oh, she's just manipulating those people,
yeah.
and like they were fighting each other and everything for the food. Um, so yeah, I get that, and look, it's one of the better parts of House of the Dragon for me is these conversations. Some of it's more subtle than others, but I do appreciate how the slow burn of this season. I know some people don't like it at all. They're waiting for just more action, and I know Game of Thrones was a bit more. It was a bit better paced, I suppose. But I love kind of just being in this world, listening
Mm.
to people conspire, and even if they barely move the story along, it's just I think the acting in this season in particular has always been phenomenal. So yeah, I just enjoy it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree with him.
I agree, and I think kind of a tenet of George R. R. Martin's writing, and one that, like, when you read the books really comes across, is that there are good people in this world, but there are no good sides. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Part of this season has been sold on it. Are you team black or are you team green? And I feel that that's marketing. It's not necessarily the show asking us that. Um, but I do feel that, like, that very much simplifies it for a lowest common denominator audience. And again, look, this is Game of Thrones. This is HBO's cash cow. They're going to want to appeal to and market it to whatever end result gets them millions and millions of viewers, you know? Um, what I like and what I think Joy is kind of observing here is that the show isn't necessarily pandering to that, you know? I
yeah,
feel like it is maintaining George R. R. Martin's respect of every side is awful, but there are good people within both sides. Like, Helena is just a purely good person. You know what I mean? No matter
yeah,
what her brothers are, or what her brothers done, or how much of a hypocrite her mom is, or how evil and conniving Otto may be, Helena is a purely good person that's been born into this world, and it's unfortunate and a victim almost, despite her privilege and everything else that comes with it. I wonder to myself, I like the complexity of characters. Like, you look on the black side and you say, who's actually good? I think Rhaenys was quite good.
yeah,
Um, for the most part, I think Corlys, you'd look at on the face of it and say, "Oh, Corlys is good," but then he went off, like, he had. Not only did he fuck around on his wife, he fucked around to the point he had two brothers with another person. So that's a
yeah,
long affair. It's not just like the odd prostitute here and there. He had a long affair with a person, and then, like, he kind of admits, like, to Alan in this episode, he didn't know that mother. So she was just his fuck doll for years. I'm like, so
yeah,
is he actually, are we sure he's good? And you look at it and you're like, who's actually good? I'm like, I think Jace. seems quite good, but he's also quite young. It's very difficult to judge. Everyone's good when they're young and life hasn't tested them and pulled them in different directions. So
What about
um
Oscar Tully this week? He's good.
he's damn good at whatever he did. Whatever it is he's doing or wants to do, he's good at. Yeah. But is he a good person fundamentally, or is he a clever person?
Yeah.
They're the things you've got to kind of look at. From a certain point of view, you could say has some good qualities. Laris is someone who's been underestimated, who's very like Tyrion, who was kind of looked down upon because he had deformities and stuff like that. So
Mm,
are some of his more sinister actions almost not justifiable, but can we empathize with them, and
yeah.
no is probably the answer. Ultimately he's a creep who made a woman get her feet out and like kind of manipulate her so he
I
could
think
wank in front of her. Like
even Aegon though, like the first thing he did when he was king was wanting to help the small folk.
yeah.
And they were like, you can't be doing that. You don't know what you're doing. But like he wanted to help people.
Oh, yeah, and that's another thing where it's like, did
but
he want to, or did he feel like he was being kingly, or did he wants to do the right thing, but he doesn't know what the right thing is? Did being king change him morally as a person, or does he just think he just is a people pleaser? And
yeah,
that's the complexity that I think Joy is kind of speaking to. When you actually look into it, you can make that argument for every single person. We made that argument for Aemon there. There's a hero and a devil's narrative in every single character here, and the show doesn't feel like pointing us either way. Damon is possibly the biggest case of this. Now, I think this season has very much tipped his hands to Damon's a scumbag. I think ever since he grabbed Rhaenyra by the throat, and again, this
yeah,
is a man who killed his wife for no reason other than it just made sense for him politically. So again, I think that was a turning point for all of us where we're like, no, I can't forgive him. Sorry. And I don't think he's necessarily come back from that. But again, Damon decides to be badass, and we're like, he's cool. I like him. You know what I mean? I know he's a prick, but fuck, I like watching Matt Smith on screen. He's really
yeah.
charismatic. So I think that's kind
Even
of
even
what.
Kristen Cole as well has some fucking cool.
Now he's a dickhead.
Um,
Now
I
no
he's got
redeemable
some good
qualities.
moments, man.
Hope a lion eats his face.
Him leading out the armies at Rook's Rest are like, damn, dude.
He's quite competent in that scene, though. Yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, he's quite a competent military leader, and there's something there to even Kristen Cole. So I do.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that subtlety. Again, I agree, Joy, with what you're saying, and that I think the heavy strokes are what people are taking from it who don't necessarily look to the show for that. But I think there is good, solid storytelling here. That even I think George R. R. Martin is a little bit salty about with some of his recent comments. I think he's like, oh shit, they're nailing it.
But like him, and then every kind of HBO show I think that I've fallen in love with over the past like 20 years have got gray, morally complex characters, like from The
Yeah.
Wire onwards. Like,
Mm.
and that's what makes these shows brilliant. Is
Yeah.
just no one's particularly all good.
We genuinely tried there, and the only good person we could come up with 100% in this show is Helena.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely.
There's one person, you know what I mean? Maybe you, maybe. Like, but again, we just painted a
A
picture for
scenario,
how we
maybe.
could
Yeah.
turn next week, like, and that could very much easily happen. Interesting times and interesting discussions, and I'm looking forward to continue having them. Though, also devastated that we won't have any more new material after next week. But yeah, no, enjoyed that as always. Before we wrap up.